Hi Gandhi class, it was so fantastic seeing you all on our live session this morning, and I was really enjoying hearing the feedback from you all about how you're feeling about history. A lot of you are really enjoying it, which I'm so happy to hear because history is one of my favourite subjects, and it was really interesting listening to you guys share some facts that you have already found out yourself. And I'm really excited to see a timeline that one of you has started creating about the Industrial Revolution. So great work, guys. I'm very happy that you are working so hard. So welcome to your third history session this week. And our learning objective for this session is, can I identify differences between the life of a Victorian child and my own? So today we're going to learn all about what life was like for a Victorian child. Victorian children had very different upbringings compared to us now. And in the Victorian period, depending on what kind of family you came from, affected the life you had as a child. So let's find out more. In 1837, at the beginning of Queen Victoria's reign, only wealthy or privileged children could afford to go to school, because at this point you had to pay to be able to go to school. Nowadays, we don't have to pay to go to school unless you're going to a private one. Poor children were able to go to free charity schools or schools run by women called dame schools. They also went to Sunday schools run by churches. However, families needed money, they needed to be supported, and so poor children, even young as 4 years old, would have to go to work to earn money for the family. And here you've got a picture of some children at school and a picture of a young boy working as a chimney sweep. So let's have a look at the children who worked first. Children did various kinds of jobs. They did a lot of different types of jobs, and many were unsafe, poorly paid, and damaging to their health. They could work as chimney sweeps, domestic servants, mill workers, factory workers, farm hands, or they could work in coal mines. So here you've got a picture of some children working in a factory, and here some children who look like they've just finished a very hard day of work. So working in the coal mine. Many children worked in coal mines. They were extremely dangerous places to work. The roofs caved in sometimes, and there could be gas explosions. Tunnels would collapse, and workers could get into all sorts of injuries. And there were very, very few safety rules. And here you have a picture of some children pushing coal along a tunnel. Working in the factory. Many factory workers were children, and they would often work for long hours for very low wages and were treated very badly. Sometimes the children started work as young as 4 or 5 years of age, and their work was unsafe because there were no guards or fences around the machines to stop accidents from happening. So again, here is a picture of some children working in a factory. Working in the mills. Thousands of children also worked in cotton mills. The conditions in mills were very, very unpleasant, and children spent most of their working hours at machines with little or no time for fresh air or exercise. Many children fell ill or had serious accidents because their hair or hands could get caught in the machines. And as you can see here, the children are on the machines, so it's a very dangerous place for them to be working. Working as a chimney sweep. So orphans and homeless children were sold to employers to become chimney sweeps. This happened because children were cheap and they couldn't complain. The boys were forced up through the narrow, winding passages of chimneys in large houses in order to clean them, and children would suffer from cuts, grazes, and bruises on their knees, elbows, and thighs. It was a dirty and dangerous job, as you can see here, because he's got a lot of soot and ash on his face from having to clean the chimneys. Working as a domestic servant. Many girls from poor families would go to work in domestic service. This meant that they would work for local landowners in their big houses or for anyone who could employ servants. They were paid very little money, and they had many unpleasant jobs to do, like cleaning out fireplaces and cleaning the kitchens. They often had to start work very early in the morning and could not go to sleep until their employers had gone to bed. So these are children who would be like maids or servants and work around the house to make sure that it's all nice and clean for the people who own the house. So I just want you to take a minute to have a think. If you were a Victorian child, which job would you want to have and why? Pause the video to have a little think, or maybe a discussion with someone nearby if they are free. So in 1880, a law was made to make sure every child in Britain between the ages of 5 and 10 went to school. However, it wasn't until 1891 that schools became free. So what was school like for them? As we go through the information, I want you to have a think about how it's similar or how it's different to school nowadays. So children from rich families were often educated at home until they were 10 years old. Boys were sent to public schools like Eton or Harrow. However, very few schools had availability for girls, and rich girls would usually be educated at home. So in the classroom, the pupils sat at desks in rows facing the front, as you can see here. The windows of the schoolroom were high so that pupils could not look out. The walls would have been quite bare, but there may have been a large map of the world for you to look at. The school morning started at 9 a.m. and lasted until 12 in the afternoon. Children were then sent home for lunch and returned for afternoon classes, which were for 12 p.m. until 5 p.m. There were no school lunches and sometimes no breaks. Classes were also incredibly large. They could be between 40 to 100 children in one class. Already looking at that day, that schedule, we're in from school from about just before 9 until 3. You get lunches at school, you get break times at school, you can play with your friends. Whereas here, they would be in from 9 until 12, working solidly, no break. They would then go home for lunch for 2 hours and then be back from 2 till 5 for more work with no breaks. Lessons in Victorian times were mostly made up of the teacher talking and pupils listening or copying from the board. Learning was done by rote, which means children chanted things over and over again, like the multiplication table facts, until they knew them by heart. The children studied what we call the 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic. Arithmetic is maths. Pupils would have also studied history and geography. Girls and boys often had different activities to do in the afternoon. The girls were taught cooking or sewing, and the boys may have been taught woodwork. There were more male teachers than female teachers in the Victorian times. Children were expected to call a male teacher sir and a female teacher madam or miss. In many schools, pupil teachers helped with the teaching. These were boys and girls over the age of 13 years. After being a pupil teacher for 5 years, they could then themselves become a teacher. Pupils were expected to be very respectful towards their teachers, and they had to bow, salute, or curtsy to them whenever they saw them in the morning. Pupils in Victorian schools were often punished harshly if they misbehaved. Some reasons for punishments could be for rudeness, leaving a room without permission, not telling the truth, being lazy, or missing school. And sometimes teachers would use a cane, and a cane was made from wood and it was used to hit children, usually across the knuckles. Teachers may have also used a torse, a thick leather strap split at one end into 2 or 3 tails. As you can see here, this one has been split into 3 tails, and it would be hit across the children's hands or legs. In some Victorian classrooms, badly behaved children may also be put in a punishment basket, which is a wicker basket, and it was raised from the ground by ropes and pulleys. So they were raised up from the ground, it was pulled up, and they would just sit in the punishment basket if they had misbehaved. Teachers may also have given children lines. This meant children would have to write the same sentence over 100 times without making a single mistake. And these were all different punishments that could have happened. These punishments were all recorded in the school's punishment book. So whenever a punishment was given, it had to be recorded down as well. Paper was really expensive in the Victorian times, and so children would scratch letters or numbers onto slate with a sharp slate pencil or chalk. The slates could then be cleaned easily and used again, as you can see here. If you were left-handed, you were often forced to write with your right hand. So everybody would be writing with their right hand. Okay, now there are 3 activities for you to choose from. I want you to choose the one that is most appropriate for you. So activity number 1, you've got a set of statements below, and I want you to draw a Victorian child and draw a modern day child. You could draw yourself. I then want you to put each of these facts around the correct child. So if you've got, I work in a coal mine, that would go to the Victorian child. You need to write it around your picture of the Victorian child. So if this is the activity that you are going to complete, please pause the video here. Activity number 2, I want you to create 2 mind maps. So have a piece of paper, split it in half. On one half of the paper, in the middle, I want you to draw a circle and write my life in the circle. And on the other side of the paper, draw a circle in the middle, write the life of the Victorian child. And I want you to then, with your mind map, write down information about each of the lives. You could include what school is like, you can include what they or you do on a day-to-day basis, and any other bits of information that you have learned from this lesson. Pause the video here if this is the activity that you are going to complete. And activity number 3, I want you to create a Venn diagram to look at the similarities and differences between your life and the life of a Victorian child. Now, the Venn diagram looks like this. So you've got 2 circles and they overlap. In this part of the circle, you would write about what your life is like. In this part of the circle, you would write about what the Victorian child's life is like. And then in the middle, you would write any similarities that you have. What is the same? So for example, you could say something that is the same is that you're both children. Something that is the same is that you would have both gone to school. Please make sure that you are making it overlap enough so that you can write what you need to write in the middle of it there. Please make sure you upload all of your work to Tapestry Gandhi class, and I will see you next time. Bye.